very good elder is somebody you can use as a role model. But your responsibility as members of the church is not to copy her. Your responsibility is to copy Jesus. And that's what messed up a lot of church members. Why? Because we are focusing on each other and we are not focusing on the Jesus is the ideal example. It's not to say that we can take a cue from Elder Buckley or Pastor or Elder Shah, but we need to understand that Jesus is our ideal example. You agree with me? Beautiful. So we must reflect Christ in all that we do.
All our righteousness is as filthy rags. You must emulate us as we emulate Jesus Christ.
I love that. I love that. And I think the Apostle Paul mentioned something like that. Follow me as I follow Christ. Beautiful. So the devil, that's right. So the devil is angry with the church because they reflect Christ. Going forward, going backward. Okay, just pause there. All right, secondly, they keep God's commandments. Do you think you can keep God's commandments on your own? But the Jews tried. And let me say this to the class. The Jews do not accept, a lot of Jews do not accept Jesus as the Messiah. And there are a lot of Jews who also believe in Judaism. Once you believe in Judaism, Jesus is of no use to you.
They believe that Jesus is a prophet.
So he's not the Messiah. Okay.
They believe that Jesus is God. Can forgive sin. The Pope.
Beautiful, I love that. Alright, so one of the characteristics is that they will reflect. Secondly, is that they will keep God's commandment. And let me say this to the class, that on your own, you can't. You have to depend on Jesus. And you have to have what I call the faith of Jesus, Sister Sterling. The Jews had the commandments, but they could not adhere or keep it. Why? Because they were not only relying on themselves, they were approaching salvation the wrong way. It was by works. Okay, another point to it is that in keeping the commandments, is it possible, or can the commandments save the remnant? Can the commandments save you? No. Why you say no, Elder Shah?
No, because we are saved through grace and through faith in Jesus Christ. That lead us to repentance. So we are saved by grace through faith in Jesus Christ. And that is why it is important for us to study the word of Christ. We have an intimate relationship with Christ. And that is no ordinary relationship. That is far better than the relationship like you and your wife have.
Beautiful, beautiful. I like that. And I like how Elder Shah speak with that passion. So it is a fact that keeping the commandments, it does not save anybody. But you can't be saved without keeping it. Alright? Remember what the Bible says, that no flesh is justified by the deeds of the law. Galatians chapter 2 verse 16 tells us that nobody can be saved by keeping the law. But keeping the law is a requirement for the remnant people. And we're going to look at the third one. It says that they have what? They have the testimony of Jesus. Can anybody say what is the testimony of Jesus? The spirit of prophecy. Wonderful, elder. Okay, thank you very much. So those are the 3 requirements as it relates to the Remnant Church and how the devil is mad with the Remnant Church. Now, the question was asked, what is the testimony of Jesus Christ? And the answer was given was that the testimony of Jesus Christ is and that is found in Revelation chapter 19, verse 10. Let us read it. What it says. And the brethren that have they worship God, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. Could you summarize that? What is the spirit of prophecy? Just put it in summation. What would you say is the spirit of prophecy? Go again, elder.
Those body of teachings that prophesy about Jesus and the work of salvation that he will.
And where do we find those teachings?
Where we find them? Throughout the Bible. Yes. And you're talking about the lesser light and the greater light? That's what you're talking about? Yes. So the Bible is the greater light, and then we have the writings of Ellen White, which we refer to as the lesser light.
All right. Anybody want to make a point on that? My sister at the back? Spirit of prophecy. Oh, okay.
And we talk about we are the remnant because we keep the commandment. But do you understand that there are many of us? We keep the commandment, yes. We are so self-righteous when it comes to the 10 Commandments, especially the Sabbath. But still yet, we don't live it. We don't live it.
So there's a problem.
So there is a problem.
Did you hear that? It's a very strong point. My sister is saying that when it comes to the commandments, we find among our people self-righteous persons. And there's a challenge where individuals claim, it's a claim that we put out there, that we keep the commandments of God. But in the true sense of the word, in the true sense of the claim, it is not totally true. So there are challenges. However, based on the description of the remnant church, this is what the remnant church will do. So what we're saying here is that if you're a part of the remnant church and you fall short, it means that your responsibility is to measure up. Notice we says that the remnant people will, one, reflect Jesus, and they will keep the commandments. So keeping the commandments must be that we are doing it with perfect conformity. I want to use that statement, Pastor, because Ellen White spoke about that in the book Faith and Work, that God is not getting perfect conformity when it comes to obeying the law. And it's a challenge in the remnant church. So it does not mean that you are not a part of the remnant. You are in the remnant church, but there might be a question sign as it relates. Sister Daphne.
Yes, my idea of keeping the commandments and to perfect conformity, it is not so much that we are keeping the commandment so that we become righteous or so that we will be saved. We are keeping it perfectly. The keeping of the commandment is a result of the fact that we are saved. When we are saved, when we have the faith of Jesus Christ, which is the faith that Jesus has, when we have that relationship with Christ, it is the Holy Spirit that lives in you. It is not I, but Christ that lives in you and is able to replicate his life perfectly in you. But this matter of, brethren, I'm going to say it for the 100th time. It is impossible for you to get up tomorrow and say, I'm going to keep these commandments and do them. It's impossible. It is Christ that must live. And once Christ is living in you, you are going to be keeping the commandments will be kept in you. I am so afraid to use the word us keeping it because we really can't. It is Christ that live out his perfect life through us when we have a relationship with him. But don't start by keeping the commandment. Have Christ live in you, and then it turns just like a wheel.
Beautiful, Pastor. That's why salvation is an individual affair. And that's the reason that all of us as members, even though we comprise the church, we are not on the same level.
I'm just adding to what Pastor was saying, and I agree with her, because it's just like when you're in a relationship, you love the person that much, you don't want to be unfaithful to them. You just want to, you just want to love them, and you just want to, there's this passion for the person. So it's the same thing when you have that relationship with God, you don't want to do wrong. Yes, you will fall sometimes, but you want to get up back because you have that passion to not be unfaithful to him.
Don't want to be unfaithful. All right, so we move on. So we say that the testimony of Jesus has to do with the spirit of prophecy. So what is the spirit of prophecy? The answer is given here. It is said that the spirit of prophecy is manifested through the prophets. Elder had said it earlier on. God's remnant church must have prophetic guidance. And when it comes to prophecy, we know that the Bible is basically prophecy. The entire, but we focus on some books like Daniel, Revelation, and we talk about even what we are studying today, Isaiah, because Isaiah was the Messiah prophet, the Messiah prophet. He spoke about Jesus' birth, everything, right up until Jesus would come on the scene and start his ministry. We are dealing with a prophecy also in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah that it speaks about, which is a part and parcel of the 2,300 days prophecy, where God has given the instruction to rebuild the temple and to make ready for the coming of the great deliverer and the Messiah, Jesus. So indeed, God's remnant church must have prophetic guidance. And the question is asked, who is a prophet? Who is a prophet?
You have prophets, you have true prophet and you have false prophet. I rather to deal with the true prophet. The true prophet, you see, is the one that prophesies and it comes to pass in Jesus Christ.
Pastor said that's one of the tests. All right, wonderful. You all agree? All right, so we could look at the explanation here. A person who speaks or writes the message of God. In agreement? Not all prophets wrote in the Bible. Did you know that? Not all of them wrote, but they spoke. They were God's mouthpiece to communicate messages. And some of these messages are communicated directly. They are messages that they receive from God. So you have first-hand prophet, second-hand prophet. And there are those individuals who may speak about third.
Inspired by the Holy Spirit. Yes. Holy men of God spake as they were moved by the Holy Spirit. Praise the Lord!
I love Elder Sharp's statement, because if you notice carefully, she's always using some text to back up her statement. So we look at who is considered the greatest prophet. Seventh-day Adventists, we talk about our prophetess Ellen White. But Jesus declared that who? John the Baptist. He was the greatest prophet to live on the earth. John did not write a single verse in the Bible. Did you know that? But he was a very powerful preacher. As a matter of fact, when you listen to some writers, John was so fearless. He spoke without fear. Vipers. And John was so fearless even up to the point of his death. Because remember, it was John who went to, we lost the field. Beautiful. Elder, say that again.
was so bold, he could look at the king and say, you're living in sin, you're living in adultery. Yeah.
I think we need some John. I think we need some John the Baptist in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. What do you say?
Yes, Elder Allen, what I want to find out, was Moses was a prophet when Jesus tell him to lead the people out of Israel, and he throw down the rod and it become, a serpent. Okay.
Yes, man. There are a lot of prophets. My sister?
Not in the study, Pastor, but this is
the study.
No, but this is something I want to ask. I want to get the answer. You have the prophet like Nehemiah, Ezra, Jonah, Micah, and we said these are minor prophets. What is the difference between the minor prophet and the other prophet?
Question is asked in the school. You're going to make a point. Yes. Just to let the brethren hear what you have to say.
Just saying that John came in the spirit of Elijah. Yes. Right, and he was one of the greatest prophets as well. So we are seeing the return of him, and 3 times we've seen that.
Beautiful. John came in the power and the spirit of Elijah. That's a beautiful, very powerful point. My sister asked a very important question, very provocative question, is that as it relates to the prophets, we have the minor prophets and other prophets. And she's asking, what's the difference between the minor prophets and the other prophets like Moses and others? Anybody wants to? Sister Dino?
My belief is that it's because of the depth that they go into. The major prophets will go in more in depth than the minor prophets. So that's what I believe the difference is. You understand? One expounds more and goes deeper, which are the major prophets. One gives you a taste.
Okay. Anybody else, Pastor? Any light on that?
Basically, it's the weight of the message that they were given. That is a major difference. It's the weight of the message and the time in which they gave it. Many major prophets were, their prophecies were backed up, sometimes years after, by minor prophets. So it's the weight of the message that they were given.
All right. Thank you very much, Pastor. Well said. We look at the reason not to reject a prophet. And number one, it says that a prophet cannot be rejected because their message is not written in the Bible as such. Such as Nathan. You remember Nathan? Nathan wrote nothing in the Bible. He didn't write a verse or scripture. But Nathan was a good prophet. So we can't reject the fact that because Nathan did not write as others, that he should not be counted as one of the prophets. But Nathan was a good prophet. Remember, it was Nathan who went to David. We look at another, John the Baptist. We mentioned about John the Baptist before. John the Baptist didn't write a verse. We look at prophetess Deborah. We look at also prophetess Huldah, and the women's ministry would talk a lot about Huldah, that they are even using her messages as theme, not a word. So, qualification of the Remnant Church. We're trying to move a little faster. Qualification of the Remnant Church. Okay, up. All right, we may not be able to finish all the slides, but we look at the qualification of the Remnant Church. Similar to what was said, the Remnant Church must be a denomination that came about after the end of the Dark Ages. And for those of us as Seventh-day Adventists, you study the prophecy, you know the Dark Ages. AD 538 to 1798 was referred to as the Dark Age. That was the 1,260 years of papal supremacy. And millions of Christians were martyred. Some were tied to stakes, some were burnt alive, some were given to hungry animals to be eaten alive, all sorts of things. But when you look at it, that the martyrs, those persons who were martyred for the cause of God during the Dark Ages, they held on to their faith in Jesus. They held on to Jesus. And not only that, but during the Dark Ages, why it was referred to as the Dark Ages, was that persons were not privy to have the Bible as we have it today. It's a privilege. What did Elder Mohan say? It's a blessing to have Bibles today. We have Bibles so that in such large quantity that persons are even rejecting or refusing to read Bibles. Sometimes you find church members leaving their Bibles at church, at the temple. But it is very important that we read the Bible. We can't overread it. I have known of one person who have read the Bible 32 times. And it is as though every time he reads the Bible, there are more inspiration. 32 times. Read the Bible from cover to cover 32 times. So during the Dark Ages, persons were not privy to the Word of God. And the Word of God was falsified. It was persons who would have prophesied falsely. Qualification is that this denomination will keep the commandments of God, as we have said before, and have the testimony of Jesus. The mission of the remnant, because basically that's what the theme of the Bible class. The remnant and its mission. And we look at the mission is that they will preach what? I don't hear you. Preach the three angels' message. Are we preaching it today? Are we preaching it today? Is it preached locally? It is being preached locally? All right, beautiful. And it is being preached globally, don't it? Wonderful. But what we need to do is to seek to enforce the three angels' message. We don't have the time to go into the messages one by one, but it is very important that this remnant church preach the three angels' message. Is that they establish the church worldwide. So what we're saying here in essence is that the remnant church is not a church that is only found on Fernley Avenue in Mayfair, or it is only in Jamaica. It is a universal church. And when we say universal, we're not talking about the universal church, don't you say no? We're talking about a church that is worldwide. So international. The church is everywhere. So out of all, is what, 232 countries in the world? Is it 232? Elder, you know? Roughly that? Seventh-day Adventists has presence in how many? How many? How many? Anybody know? Seventh-day Adventist Church has presence in how many countries? The last update I heard was that we have presence in 220. So what this is saying to you is that we are closing in, don't it? The preaching of the gospel is even more enhanced through the medium of technology. So it can be satellite anywhere in the world. So what we're saying here is that this is just to close off. It is saying to all of us that the end is very near, don't it? And it is not only for you to be fearful about the end, but it is for you and all of us to be prepared, right? To be prepared. And our preparation is really in Christ. It is says that they will preach the everlasting gospel to every nation, to every tribe, to every tongue, and to every people. The everlasting gospel speaks about the life, death, burial, resurrection of Jesus. Even when you get to heaven, you will not stop talking about it. It is everlasting. And that's how effective it will be. And the only thing that will remain as it relates to what sin has caused is just the scar in Jesus. Because Nahum 1 verse 9 tells us that iniquity shall not rise. I have gotten the wrap-up signal. Need to stop here. But I trust that we will continue to study. This is just a part of belief number 13. And as it is entitled The Remnant and its Mission. And what we are saying here is that the Remnant Church today, I won't call any church name, it is a church that keeps the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus. And the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. Brothers and sisters, and keep his commandment, as the wise man Solomon says, for this is the whole duty
of man. God bless you and continue to be faithful.